So the other day, I couldn't decide where to place this old mirror of mine, so I leaned it up against a wall over there. And I sat down on this very couch to start this workshop, and I caught a glimpse of myself in the reflection and thought to myself, what if I use this mirror in my workshop somehow? Or what if I shot the entire thing through the reflection of a mirror? And then I thought, what if this mirror could even represent why I believe every one of us is creative, as people who are made in the image of God, as children of God who are made in his image. I was thinking about how a mirror doesn't generate an image, but it reflects it, or how a mirror doesn't make light, it reflects light. That perhaps creativity is how we can reflect the one who made us. And then I wondered, if I had never seen the reflection in my mirror, what kind of workshop would we be looking at right now? And it made me realize that some of my favorite creative works have started with the art of noticing what could be, and then being curious enough to ask, what if? My name is Jarel. Ayuson. I am a resident director at Trinity Western University on the west coast of Canada, and I'm really excited to share with you how we as Christian leaders can steward the creativity that is already within us. In the very first chapter of the Bible, God is revealed to us as creator, bringing light from darkness, order from chaos, and beauty from nothing. If we look at Genesis 1 verse 27, it says, "So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them." See, that means that creativity isn't just for artists, or it's not just reserved for designers, but it's woven into who we are as image bearers. It's important to note that we don't create the way that God does. We can't create out of nothing or speak galaxies into existence, but what we can do is take what exists and to shape and to steward it into something good, meaningful, and beautiful. So hear this, that you are creative because your creator is, and his image is in you. Let's look at 1 Peter 4 verse 10. It says, "As each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's grace." So if God has given you creativity, which he has, it means it's not just for you. It's meant to be nurtured, shared, and used to reflect his beauty in the world. What if we saw our leadership roles this year not just as a list of tasks to complete, but as a mirror, as an opportunity to reflect the image of God and bring his light into the spaces that we serve? Take out your notes app or something to write with and jot down these 4 words: seeing, noticing, imagining, and creating. Seeing, noticing, imagining, and creating. For those of you who love an acronym, SNIC. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna SNIC right now, which sounds, I don't love that. But simply, this is the movement I want to teach you today, one that you can apply to your roles, to your leadership, to your brainstorming sessions, or whatever. So seeing, noticing, imagining, and creating. Starting with seeing. This is the baseline. For those of us who have or are privileged to have vision, we can see. But seeing can be passive. It's something we don't give a lot of thought to. It's your daily walk through the halls. It's just what's there. But to notice is something that's intentional. It's observing patterns or gaps or certain tones or silence. It's paying attention to things that people might simply overlook. See, the art of noticing is where creativity truly begins. Jesus himself didn't just see, but he noticed. He saw beyond the surface, as we read in the Gospels. He noticed the hunger in the crowd or within the crowd, and he fed them. He noticed the woman who was bleeding in silence and called her daughter and healed her. He noticed ordinary fishermen, and he called them to be disciples. So perhaps creativity is wholly noticing. Now, imagining. Imagining asks the faithful and curious question, what if? Like I mentioned, my favorite creative works have started with the questions, what if? What if something could be different? What if God is doing something that I might not really see the full picture of yet? In Genesis 2, God invites Adam to name the animals, and God doesn't just name them himself, but instead he entrusts Adam to imagine and to name them. You could say that imagination is part of stewardship. It's how we partner with God to dream, to name, to shape what could be. However, not all imagination reflects God. When left unchecked, imagination can lead us into fear, It could be unhealthy fantasies or even control. And that's why our prayer should be asking for a sanctified imagination, one that's surrendered to God, purified by His Spirit, and is used for His purposes. And now comes the last step, which is creating. Creating is action. It's when you take your noticing and your imagining and you steward them into something real. But creativity and creating, it requires risk. Because to create and to innovate is to have the courage to step into the unknown, to trust God with your ideas, and to innovate even when the outcome is uncertain. It's the courage to act, not perfectly, but faithfully. There are two biggest killers to creativity. One is perfectionism, and the other is comparison. Perfectionism demands flawlessness and delays action. It convinces you that unless it is excellent, it's not worth doing. And comparison turns your eyes away from what God has uniquely given you to steward and fixates them on what someone else is doing. They both form a trap. You won't start often because it's not perfect enough, or you won't continue because someone else is better. But see, creativity was never meant to be a performance. It's meant to be participation with God. You're not called to be the best. You're called to be faithful. Think of this framework as your creative discipleship tool. To be a creative leader is to notice what others miss and to faithfully bring beauty, hope, and innovation into the spaces where God has entrusted to you. Okay, now we're gonna get super practical by looking at something called the creative reframe, which is just a tool to take what can feel really abstract about creativity and to ground it into practical tips that we can apply in our everyday. So if you haven't already, take out your notes app on your phone or something to write with, as it can help you to remember to apply these in your day-to-day lives. And how we're going to do it is we're going to apply one question to reflect on, a prayer, and then a simple practice to each of those four movements of seeing, noticing, imagining, and creating. What's something in your leadership role that you see all the time or something that you do regularly? And just to list all of those things. It could be a bulletin board you pass by, or a reoccurring meeting, or you always run into the same person after class because you have different classes that end at the same time. So just start to note the things that keep showing up. There's a prayer for each one because prayer is so important as we create. It invites God's presence and His ideas into the process. For those of you who are familiar on Instagram, you'd know this term, but it takes what is ordinary that you see in your leadership role and it compiles them in one place, potentially as a visual reference to see where new ideas can come out of. How can I see the ordinary, the regular, or the repetitive in a new way today? How can I see things with fresh eyes today? And I'm reminded of Exodus 31, where one of the first recorded instances of someone being filled with the Spirit of God was a designer. I think this is such a beautiful prayer to invite God's presence into the process. The practice for this one is to find a sit spot. What this is just finding a spot on campus where you can sit for 10 to 15 minutes and just observe, notice. You'll be surprised at what happens when you go from 2 minutes of sitting and then the things that you'll notice at minute 10 or 11. I love this question mostly because it puts us in a posture of curiosity. And I think that's an amazing place to create, because it takes attention away from ourselves and into what's beyond ourselves. God, give me a sanctified imagination, because we've talked about how our imagination can sometimes lead us astray. This prayer is important to refocus us. And the practice is to do an idea sprint. So 3 minutes on your phone, set a timer, and just write as many what if ideas that can come in. It would be helpful to maybe just focus on one idea or thing that you want to do. Like, let's say you want to run an event and you just list all the what ifs to that event, not filtering anything, just so that you can see what crazy ideas might actually be ones that could be fleshed out. The question to reflect on is what's one creative risk that you can take today? We've talked about how creativity takes courage. It takes courage because you're stepping into the unknown often, or to things that haven't been done before. The prayer is, Jesus, give me the courage to take that creative risk and to overcome perfectionism and comparison. And lastly, the practice to creating is to just start. Starting can be the hardest, but maybe a way to challenge that is to try to describe an idea without words. Maybe you are looking at like music or songs to describe it, or you're pulling images as a visual representation of the aesthetic or the emotions you want to people to feel, or you're drawing or you're painting. And I encourage you to step into some of those more artistic mediums as a way to be curious about what sort of like different ideas can form from that. So that is a creative reframe. I hope some of these are helpful, or things that you even excite you. I hope that they breathe fresh life into your roles and to your work, and that if you're feeling a little bit like stuck or things are feeling kind of dry, that this would just be a way to revive the beautiful work that we get to do on our campuses. So this framework, seeing, noticing, imagining, and creating, isn't just a leadership tool or a creative checklist, but it's an invitation to create. Perhaps you can even just consider it as a way to slow down and pay attention, and to believe that God can use you to bring beauty, hope, and renewal to your campus, to your community, or to your area of leadership. But maybe as you've been listening, some fear or doubt or even skepticism or perfectionism or perhaps even comparison started to creep in as you consider the ways that you can be creative in your roles. Maybe you've thought, I'm just really not creative, or I've made too many mistakes, or I just don't feel like I have anything good to offer. If that's you, I have some good news. And that is that God does his best work with what's broken. See, in the Japanese tradition, there's this sacred art form called kintsugi, which translates to golden joinery. And what this means is when a ceramic bowl breaks, it's not just thrown away and put in the trash. Instead, a master artisan carefully gathers those shattered pieces and begins a delicate and intentional process of restoration. But here's a catch. They don't just use super glue to hide all the cracks. Instead, they use this pure golden lacquer to fill them, lining every fracture with this golden brilliance. And it's not about making the bowl look like it was never broken, but it's about honoring the brokenness as part of the story. Because when the bowl is finished, it's not just functional again, but because of the gold, it's more valuable, more beautiful, and utterly unique, all through this redemptive creative process. This is how our God works. He doesn't just discard what's fractured or broken. He takes those broken pieces of our life, our leadership, or maybe even our creativity, and he fills them with grace. Like kintsugi, your brokenness or mistakes aren't a disqualification. If anything, it's the canvas where redemption can take shape. So don't forget that creativity is not about creating art, but it's about reflecting our Creator so that others may see a creative, beautiful, and gracious God. Our question isn't, am I creative? Instead, it's, how am I stewarding the creativity that God has already given me? You've got this. I believe in you. God has got your back. So I encourage you to go and steward your creativity as image bearers, redeemed and restored by God. And remember the framework. See what others miss. Notice where God is already at work. Imagine what could be and create something beautiful for his glory. Love y'all a lot. I wish you the best with all that's coming with the rest of the year, and God bless you in the work ahead. Happy creating.